Okay. You've read that if the IEP isn't finished at the IEP meeting, you can wait to accept the NOREP, and that's another way of saying prior written notice, guys, depending on the state you're in. So a NOREP would be equivalent to a PWN or prior written notice. And they have to give you the full IEP with the NOREP or prior written notice. Someone else I just talked to said that is a blurry line, that the school might just enact the IEP without your consent as a result, which is true. Okay, well, which is true. Now, if they didn't complete the IEP meeting, then why didn't they complete the IEP meeting? If they don't have a completed IEP, then they have nothing to implement. You have to have a completed IEP before you can put it into effect. So the duration dates on that IEP become very important. But at the same time, if you have not completed the development of the IEP itself, then you haven't come to the end. What is the end? The end is a placement decision. The end is the least restrictive environment. That is the only time you ever discuss placement or least restrictive setting. Now, you can sit there and say, well, it hasn't changed year to year, and it's not going to change next year. But at the same time, IEPs all over the country are supposed to be designed and implemented in the exact same way. You have to start, there's a very exact process. And so you have to sit there and go all the way through that process till you get to the end to have a completed IEP and one that can be implemented. Before that, it's just an incomplete IEP. And I don't know how any school system could implement that if it has not been completed. Now, that's if, in the perspective of the school system, you truly don't have a completed IEP. You say that you don't have or you didn't finish the IEP meeting. Well, is that in your perspective or is that in the school's perspective? Meaning that everybody mutually agrees that we have not yet finished completing or putting together the IEP. But there's many instances to where the parent sits there and says, well, I don't think we finished the IEP. And then, gosh, you find out later that the school's like, yeah, we did. And you're like, no, we didn't. And, this IEP's in place, and magically, where did that come from? So, I don't have all of those details in the reason I could sit there and try to, guess. But I'm going to take how you're describing it as you're describing it. And that's why I answered like I did, that an uncompleted IEP can't be implemented because it isn't completed. Now, let's take that other blurry line aspect that whoever you talk to with regards to prior written notice, but a completed IEP can be implemented whether you agree with it or not. Okay. Now, we have something in the law called stay put, which means that you can trigger your dispute resolution option. And that's the only way to implement stay put, guys, is stay put is a dispute resolution option where you file due process and you write in there that you're requesting stay put, meaning that IEP that was just developed, it's put on hold. And then what ends up happening is the stay put would put that on hold. Of course, you'd have to sit there and have a discussion with the hearing officer to have the hearing officer agree, or through agreement with the district, they could agree prior to a hearing officer decision to hold that IEP pending the completion of the hearing or negotiations. Okay, but that's what stay put does. It would stop that IEP that was developed from being implemented. Well, you sit there and you say, well, there has to be an IEP in place. Yes, that would fall back to the last agreed upon IEP. So whatever the last agreed upon IEP was, guys, that would be the controlling IEP while the one in disagreement stays put, okay? Which means for the new school year, you use the last agreed upon IEP, even though it might be from the last school year, until this one in dispute gets worked out, okay? So that can happen. But let's say, that's if you disagree with that IEP, okay? I mean, so your friend is correct that, the school system has a legal responsibility to have an IEP in place on the first day of your child's school year. That's a mandate. It's a part of the law. Okay? So they have to have something in place, and they have to implement these services. So, that's why prior written notice or completing the IEP, whatever it is, it needs to be done. It does need to be done. Now, if it's already done, then at that point, yes, you should get, you should get the completed IEP, and everything may be fine. You don't know yet. I don't know. Maybe you do know. But this is the thing. The school has 100% of the legal duty to provide your child with a FAPE. You do not as a parent. Your role on the IEP team is you have a right to full parental participation. But full parental participation is your presence in the development of that IEP. Good, valuable, meaningful input. That's what that means. But let's say that there's a disagreement on the team. Let's say that you don't have consensus. You don't necessarily like that IEP. You don't have any veto power as a parent. Okay? You don't. You can't block it. You can't sit there and say, well, I'm not signing it. I'm not, I'm putting down here that I reject it. That's not how that works. You have no veto power. You cannot stop what is the legal right of the school. They have a legal duty that you do not possess. They can get in trouble if they don't do it. You cannot. So therefore, you don't have those rights to sit there and block the implementation of an IEP, because what you would be doing is you would be an obstacle, or you would be impeding the school's legal duty to provide your child with a FAPE. And you sit there and you say, well, wait a minute, but I disagree with this IEP. Well, that's what your dispute resolution options are for, guys. That's what those are for. That's why you have an ability to file a state complaint, an ability to file a due process complaint with a hearing officer. That's why you have an ability to ask for mediation. That's why you have an ability to ask for another IEP meeting so that you can try to reach consensus. You also have the ability, if it's really a bad IEP that you disagree with, to put down stay put and sort of stop that. Of course, you have to file a due process complaint, and it's something that is the decision of the hearing officer on the front end, okay, while the hearing's going on. But that is an option as well. You just can't, before those options are triggered, you just can't, somehow, well, I'm not going to sign the IEP, and I'm going to lay low, and I'm going to ignore phone calls. Can't do that. Can't do that. You cannot be an obstacle to their legal duty to provide your child with a free, appropriate public education, even if you disagree with the IEP. What do you do if you disagree with the IEP? Like I said, you have to trigger one of your dispute resolution options. That's what the rules are.